and processed. So many phases will happen. After undergoing several phases, finally your application is ready for responding with you. That means the static DOM is converted into dynamic DOM. Once the static DOM is converted into dynamic DOM, that means now application starts working. Your application starts working. Your application starts working. That means when application started, it is having a static DOM. And once the entire library is loaded, compiled, and all the dynamic features are attached, then it is converted into dynamic DOM. Then it starts interacting with you. And the very important point is the process of converting the static DOM, the process of converting a static DOM into dynamic DOM is called bootstrapping. Bootstrap. Bootstrap is the process of converting static DOM into dynamic DOM. So Bootstrap is nothing but it will monitor all these phases and finally converts into the dynamic DOM. So if anyone asks what is bootstrapping in Angular, so bootstrapping is the process of converting static DOM into dynamic DOM. That means now which application should start, means which component should start interaction with us. Which component should start interaction with us? Which component should start interaction with us? That is defined from this bootstrap process. That means bootstrap indicates that this will start responding with you. And after that, other components will be bootstrapping, right? That means bootstrap comprises of, why it is called bootstrap, you understood now. So bootstrap indicates which component you must start with. That means which component should provide you a dynamic environment so that you can start responding. Means you can start interacting. So from which component application has to start interaction, that you have to define by using bootstrap. So in bootstrap, which component you have defined, application starts with that component. Remember, there is so much link here. Link is nothing but, so in bootstrap, which component you have defined, some app component you have defined, this component must be included in index.html. Index.html. This is very important. In index.html, you have included a component to start with, and that component is not matching with the component in bootstrap, then you have a problem. That means the component that you defined in bootstrap should match with the component in index. That means which component you mentioned in bootstrap, index should start with that component. Suppose in bootstrap you defined a separate component, an index you are using some other component, then automatically it throws an error. It says that what you are trying to run is not in bootstrap. That means bootstrap indicates that out of all components, which component we should start interacting with first. After the first component is defined, the rest of the components are wired up automatically. So which component should be converted into dynamic DOM and provided to you in order to start interaction? So that is defined in bootstrap. So that is the reason. So this app.module.ts is very important for us. App.module.ts, which is present in that app folder. It is important for us. So whatever you create must be configured, must be defined and specified here. Specified here. So that is what actually app component is. App module is, right? You can see, observe carefully here. Actually, Bootstrap is using app component. Bootstrap is using app component. And here in index, go to app component logic. App component have a selector called app root. App have a selector called app root. These are all the points we are going to learn. How to build a component and all we are going to learn, right? It have a selector app root. Go to index.html and see. In index.html, that app root is defined. That means what you define in Bootstrap is important. So technically here, what is the key point is bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is the process of converting static DOM, process of converting static DOM into dynamic DOM. It is the process of converting static DOM into dynamic DOM. Important is, so you have to define the startup component in Bootstrap of ng module. In Bootstrap of ng module. So and it should map to the selector in, it should map to the selector in index.html. This is the basic point you need to understand. So bootstrapping is the process of converting the static DOM into dynamic DOM. And you have to define the startup component. You have to define the startup component in Bootstrap of ng module. In Bootstrap of ng module, it should map to the selector in index.html. That means example is like, suppose I have bootstrap, and here I have app component, and in index.html, it should have app root. Actually, app component contains app root as selector. So that means through this app root, you can access that component and use that component. So every component, how it is designed, how it is accessed, how it is configured, we will learn detailedly about that. But before that, you need to understand this complete infrastructure, right? So you have to understand this complete infrastructure. Hope you are clear with this. So the point is, our entire application development will be concentrating on this app. We have to add everything into this: components, services, filters, everything we need to add into this. And after adding, we need to register them. We have to import and register them in app module. In app module, there are two steps. First, you have to import, then you have to register. So anything that is not registered and imported in app module.ts will not work. And here, declarations is the location where you have to register components. Imports is the location where you have to register modules. And providers is the location where you have to register your services. And Bootstrap is the location where you have to specify which component to start with. And which component to start with, the component name is defined. Its selector must match in index.html. So can we change the index.html to any another page to start with? Yes. What is this app component? Observe here, this app component is a sample component. We can remove it, we can add our own components. First we need to understand what is component.